one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, man, you do something about it, because you can.
This story comes to us from the Chicago Sun-Times, where Kane County Sheriff Ron Hain recently slammed Aurora, Illinois police, saying they were too passive and reactive in trying to arrest a suspect the night before he was shot and killed by Hain's deputies in a violent broad daylight encounter on the Batavia-Geneva border last year. This is in Illinois. Among other things, Hain called the Aurora, Illinois police clowns. Now, Aurora Mayor Richard Irvin is pushing back against Hain's remarks, many of which were included in a recent Chicago Sun-Times story about events leading up to the fatal shooting of Jim Moriarty on May 24th, 2023. And they're essentially blaming Hain for the deadly confrontation because he compromised an Aurora Police undercover operation the night before that could have led to Moriarty's arrest without the loss of life. Quote, "The mistake that caused the unfortunate loss of life was his and his alone," says Mayor Irvin at an Aurora City Council meeting, referring to Hain, and he ought to accept the responsibility for it instead of interjecting misplaced and unsubstantiated conjecture, rumors, and innuendo. He goes on, "The events that followed the botched surveillance operation were unfortunate and likely preventable if Sheriff Hain himself, who was not on the scene himself, had let our officers do their job. His comments were reckless and inappropriate. We towed the car based on our case, and we caught the offender after a week of chaos. That's the end of the story." End quote. Now, while Moriarty's shooting death was a full year ago, the investigation into it is only wrapping up now, with Kane County State Attorney Jamie Mosser soon expected to decide whether criminal charges are warranted against the police or anyone for that shooting. As the Sun-Times recently reported, Aurora, Illinois police began an undercover surveillance operation in the town on May 23rd of last year, quietly watching Moriarty's car that was parked near an apartment, waiting for him to come out so they could arrest him using the element of surprise. Now, he had been in a series of car chases and had active warrants for robbery and aggravated fleeing and eluding. His family and friends said his mental health had been spiraling, and he'd recently resumed heavy drug use following a year and a half of sobriety. He'd apparently tried to kill himself not long before in a drug overdose. Moriarty, who grew up in Alsip, was inside his nearby apartment, but Aurora police didn't want to barge in and force a confrontation or escalate things needlessly, given the uncertainty of whether he had a gun and his recent remarks about committing suicide by cop. So they were kind of wanting to, they didn't want to just go in like they normally do. Then Kane County Sheriff's deputies rolled onto the scene in marked squad cars without regard for the surveillance or Aurora's request that they stay away. They went in like cowboys. We got this. They said they were there to seize the car by order of the sheriff. Now that destroyed the surveillance operation and the hours of work put in by the Aurora, Illinois Police Department. When Moriarty emerged from his apartment the next morning to find his car gone, he carjacked a woman at a local Jiffy Lube, got into a chase with sheriff's police that ended with him being shot to death by deputies at a busy intersection. And it was Fabian Parkway and Randall Road. Now, the Sun-Times published details from Aurora police reports that were critical of Hain, Sheriff Hain, for allegedly escalating things indirectly, but he in turn tore into the Aurora police for simply sitting on Moriarty's car the night before his death. Quote, "That type of police work is baiting someone to get into a pursuit," Hain says. "I would say they escalated things. Get a warrant and go into the apartment. Grab the guy." Now, Sheriff Hain stood by his actions to take that weapon away, meaning the vehicle, though he says he also apologized because he hadn't realized the level of Aurora's surveillance operation when he ordered his people in. If they told you to stay away, you knew there was a surveillance operation. Mayor Irvin, a one-time Republican candidate for governor, who as mayor oversees the Aurora Police Department, said after reading Hane's remarks in the newspaper, he couldn't let them go unanswered. So he says, our officers waited by Moriarty's parked car to arrest him in the safest manner possible as he attempted to gain access to his vehicle, says Mayor Irvin. Unfortunately, this operation was compromised when the sheriff's deputies, acting under the direct orders of Sheriff Hayne himself, appeared on the scene and seized Moriarty's vehicle, despite our officers' immediate explanation as to what they were doing in the Aurora Police Department operation and why. He goes on, I absolutely disagree with Sheriff Hayne. There is nothing reactive about trying to arrest a suspect using a coordinated effort with the least amount of force and exposing the subject and our officers to the least amount of danger possible. Not only is that good police work, it saves lives. Just as Sheriff Hayne apologized for his actions in the wake of what followed, he should apologize for his careless and consequential directives that night and his continued attacks on the Aurora Police Department a year later. Close quote by the mayor. Now it goes down a little farther. I'm not going to continue on. Or maybe it don't. That looks like that's the end of it. That was the end of it. But the thing is, just something to let you chew on, and I'm going to close with this, leave this with you. Here you have this guy who's, all this is alleged, all these allegations that he's going to die by suicide by cop. He's going to, I'm coming out. Don't you come for me, whatever. He's been in car chases, looting, fleeing the police. And finally, this police department, Aurora, Illinois, they're around his car. And as soon as he comes out of his apartment, he goes to get in his car thinking it's all right. Boom, they got him. Boom, no, he goes to jail. He's good. But in comes the sheriff's deputies like Wyatt Earp and his band of raiders. Whoa, we're taking the car and we're getting this dude, this sucker. So they take his car, leaving him with what? No transportation now. So what does he do? He carjacks somebody and ends up getting into a confrontation with the deputies. The sheriff's deputies shoot him and they're like, we got our man, strap him to the hood. My point is, and maybe I'm being cynical, because sometimes I'm very cynical, because it's irritating that finally a police department is going to take this guy the correct way. You know what I mean? That's what we hope, because they had their operation going, they were watching the car, he comes out to get in his car, we're going to take him. We're not going to bust into the apartment and have to shoot him because he's got a gun shooting out of the walls at us. We're going to wait till he comes out to his car, looks around, there's nobody here, okay, I'm good, I'm going to get in my car, boom, got him, boom, boom. And then comes the sheriff's deputies. Well, we're taking the car. We don't care what you're watching. We don't care about your little operation, you clowns. I mean, here locally, our sheriff, he pretty much works with all the police chiefs and he works with the police officers in the area. He works with all the departments. But here, this Sheriff Hayne, he's like, they're a bunch of clowns over there. We know how you really feel. Remember, Kane County, voting time. Sheriff Hayne, nope, skip that box.